Happy Memorial Day.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out to pay your respects and to honor those members of the military who made the ultimate sacrifice. In the words of Abraham Lincoln at his Gettysburg address on the dedication of the Gettysburg National Cemetery, we are here and we must highly resolve that they have not died in vain. I would like to take a moment to recognize those members of the military, those past members of the military, and those who have lost someone, a loved one. Please raise your hand and wave. Thank you. I'd like to introduce, for the opening prayer, Reverend Noreen Cerner.
Thank you. I have a question for you. The last week, I've been wished a happy Memorial Day. And I've been kind of startled by that. Not an honorable Memorial Day, not a remembrance day, but happy? I was confused. I think it's a solemn day, a day that we remember the people who have given so much for our liberties. And I think the opportunity for us to honor them, as you have so well said, with the words of President Abraham Lincoln, may they not have died in vain. Let us pray. O Judge of the nations, we remember before you with grateful hearts the men and women of our country who in the day of decision ventured much for the liberties we now enjoy. Grant that we may not rest until all the people of this land share the benefits of true freedom and gladly accept its disciplines. May we honor the sacrifices of these men and women who have worked on our country's behalf, and to do our part, yours and my part, to keep the liberties secured from both internal and external enemies. All this we ask in the name of a loving God. Amen.
We'll now have the national anthem played by the Mount Greylock High School Band under the direction of Lyndon Moores. Thank you. And now a brief bio of the Grand Marshal of today's event, Don Digger Claremont. Mr. Claremont served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. He spent most of his career stationed in Panama and earned the rank of corporal. Mr. Claremont has lived in Lanesborough most of his life and served the town of Lanesborough for 42 years in several roles. He was the highway superintendent for 37 years before retiring to work at Newton Construction. Mr. Claremont also was the custodian of the landfill and an assistant fire chief with the Lanesborough Volunteer Fire Department, and he has worked as a part-time police officer for the town. Mr. Claremont officially retired at the age of 86 and will be celebrating his 90th birthday later this year. Mr. Claremont, thank you. We'll now have a greeting from a member of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Robert Erickson.
Fellow residents of Lanesborough, honored and invited guests, and visitors, welcome to today's memorial honoring our departed heroes, including servicemen and women and others who have paid the ultimate price to protect, sustain, and enable the lives of those they have left behind and their future generations. How many wars will continue to occur until the human race stops devouring some of their most devoted, most courageous, and sometimes most intelligent, and of course always their most honored people on the battlefields of our planet? Well, history tells us that we are in a major conflict on the average of every 16 years, which is sobering when you think about it. Well, closer to every 10 years in recent times. World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, Persian Gulf War, Global War on Terror, and on and on and on. And the numbers of our losses are staggering. World War II, servicemen only counted here, 405,399. Korean War, 52,246. Vietnam War, 90,220. Persian Gulf, 1,948 people. Global War on Terror, 6,867. That's an enormous loss of lives and talent. Some of our most valuable people are gone. Of our husbands, wives, sons, daughters, and other relations. Our friends, our neighbors, and always part of our community. These are sobering facts. And these numbers do not begin to describe the related losses of civilians and non-combatants in these war periods, which are often too staggering to even imagine. These are just statistics. Who and what were these people whose lives were extinguished on the battlefield or as a result of it? Well, anyone who joins the services of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard soon finds out that discipline is the first quality you learn in the military, and you learn it very fast. But camaraderie is the close second, and an almost impossible part to describe. It only occurs before the military in civilian life, in sports teams, and that sort of function. But in the military, it's an important part of a military unit. And it's also one of the foremost reasons that drive an individual to make those enormous sacrifices on the battlefield. That's the feeling that I can't let my buddies down, and this is my job, I must get it done. And that's what happens. And where does this battlefield strength and dedication originate? Well, it starts right here in the community, in places like this, Lanesborough, and other places like this across the nation. It starts with loving parents, relatives and friends who have the courage to be good parents, who put in hours, days, weeks, months, and years of upbringing and schooling to instill love, knowledge, truth, honesty, and self-discipline in their children. It's not an easy job, and we don't get paid very well for it. And speaking as a dad, it's very difficult at times. But if we do our jobs as a parent right, well, someday we get to look back at what we've done, because it really does take a village to do it all, including schools, churches, neighbors, and you get to look back and say, well, all right, I've done my job. And after you've done your job, well, then they leave us. College, sometimes to get married, sometimes to work and live somewhere else, sometimes to join the military and complete their obligation to their country and their flag. And sometimes they don't come back. And today we honor all these losses and sacrifice of our loved ones with the earnest promise that we, the living, will go on with our lives, saddened by the absence of these loved ones of our community, but with the promise that we will continue to honor their sacrifice and remember that there are two brief lives within our hearts and minds forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today's keynote speaker, history teacher at Mount Greylock Regional High School, Mr. Drew Gibson. Welcome.
Thank you, Riley. To all veterans, family members of past and the current military, emergency service personnel, Board of Selectmen, and the good people of Lanesborough, welcome to you on this great Memorial Day celebration.
I can't hear you.
We are taking a moment out of the 24/7 adventure serial called My Life to honor those who served our nation on the field of battle and who died in that endeavor. We honor all who give the energy of their young lives to our nation in service, but we reserve a special place to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. They died that we might live in liberty, that we might pass those liberties on to our children, and that we might preserve the example of a free people to the world. Why is this important? We say that the liberties they died to preserve are precious. But why precious? Compared to what? Starting out in my profession in history, I can still remember how moved I was to realize that for the overwhelming span of human history, for the overwhelming number of nations, and for the overwhelming masses of people, the standard of life has always been to live under some kind of despotism or tyranny. Our experience in America is really an ahistorical bubble floating on a sea of tyranny. Our freedom to live our lives as we conceive them with a minimum of interference, this is precious because it is so rare. The scale of opportunities America provides is another treasure we have inherited thanks to the sacrifices of others. Equal access has never been perfect, but it has progressively improved decade by decade until today America represents the ideal of opportunity for the whole world. We are the land of opportunity because of the value we place on every individual. Each one has an inherent dignity and hence a right to create a life for themselves. This conviction of ours has led to astonishing achievements. Moreover, we have always held that our most important duty is to protect that freedom so that others may have those opportunities. And who is it, in the last analysis, who has been the one to stand up and protect these ideals? Who is it who placed his or her body in the service of a nation so conceived and so dedicated? The fact that we are here on this day, on Memorial Day, tells us the answer to that question. To understand what this has meant in practice, it's only necessary to mention a few stories from the thousands that are available. So let me simply remember two sons of Massachusetts, two men who came here from very different worlds. Thomas Plunkett, born in County Mayo, Ireland, came to America in 1848 with thousands of others desperate for some kind of opportunity in life. 14 years later, Plunkett enlisted in the 21st Massachusetts Regiment during our Civil War. He was the color bearer of his company, an important position because in that day, the smoke of battle was so thick that soldiers only knew where to go by following their regimental flag. This meant that the color bearer was always in the lead. And in December of 1862, he led his company in the attack on Marie's Heights at Fredericksburg, marching straight into the guns. A cannon blast took away both of Plunkett's arms and wounded him in the chest, but he didn't stop. Rather, he pressed that flag tight against his chest and his heart with what remained of his arms to keep the line moving forward, with him in the lead until he fainted for loss of blood. To Thomas Plunkett, your faithfulness is something that we, your adopted brothers and sisters, are grateful for and will remember. During the Second World War, John Fox was made into a bright new second lieutenant in charge of a platoon of the 92nd Infantry Division. He was a black officer of a black unit whose roots went back to the famed Buffalo Soldiers of the Plains Wars of the 1800s. On Christmas Day, 1944, American forces were being forced from the Italian village of Sommacolona during a massive German counterattack. Lieutenant Fox volunteered to stay behind as the artillery observer, directing the defensive fire of a dozen different batteries to hold the Germans back while his regiment regrouped. As the Germans attacked the town, Lieutenant Fox radioed in again and again, adjusting the artillery ever closer to his location. The soldier receiving his message was worried that the artillery was going to land too close to him, but Fox replied, "Fire it." "That last round was just where I wanted it," said Fox. "Now bring it in 60 yards more." But this adjustment would bring down dozens of heavy guns right on top of Fox's position. When told this, Fox simply confirmed that he knew what he was doing by saying, "Fire it." Those accurate salvos stopped the Germans in their tracks, gave the American soldiers a chance to counterattack and retake the town. And when the body of Lieutenant Fox was found, they found also the bodies of hundreds of German soldiers all around the shattered debris of his outpost. To Lieutenant John Fox of Massachusetts, we, your brothers and sisters, will remember. There are thousands of similar examples all across our history, from American men and women of all races and origins who stood by their posts, who risked and who gave everything to pass on to us the inheritance of America. We are happy when we have an excuse to attach our small selves to something as great as the cause of freedom. Most of us here today have not sacrificed so much to our country, but in our hearts we can at least acknowledge the sacrifice of those who did. And to all of them we say, God bless you. And on this 26th of May, let the blessings of their sacrifice also be with us. To truly honor their sacrifice, we must bless one another. Americans have always been a fractious people, it is true. But in our best moments, underneath our most vigorous debates, we have held to the conviction that, while I may not agree with what you say, I will defend to the utmost your right to say it. That statement is, I submit to you, the condensed essence of America as a society. It's a statement about the love and respect we must have for each other to succeed as a society. That is the real secret of America. Freedoms preserved for all, regardless of the social status or creed. That is the secret of a land of hope and opportunity. And that is the treasure that the men and women of our armed forces died to preserve. Thank you, honored members of the military, for doing that. You gave all that you had and all that you were. We will remember.
Thank you. The next three events will occur one behind the other. We'll have the wreath laying by Liam Seddon, the rifle salute by the Dalton Rifle Team, Post 155 of the American Legion, and taps will be played by the Mount Greylock Regional High School Band under the direction of Lyndon Moores. The replaying. Thank you. There will be several rounds of fire. Thank you. Benediction by Reverend Noreen Cerner.
I want to say thank you to all of you who have taken this time out, not just to watch your children perform, but to be here to remember. Thank you. And thank you to all who have sacrificed everything. Thank you for giving us this precious gift. Thank you for those who serve currently. We are so grateful for their service today. Let us pray. Oh God, we give grateful thanks for all of those who have given their lives. As you have said, there's no greater gift than for a friend to lay down his life for another. We ask for you to keep safe and repose those who have died. May they know the riches of eternal kingdom. We also ask for your protection for those who serve currently. May they be safe. We also ask for your protection to be with all of us who are here as we go forth. May we remember that it is now our duty to serve, our duty to keep this precious gift of freedom. All of this we pray in Christ's name. Amen.
And the last word. The parade committee invites everyone to the Crispy Cone Band for complimentary cups of ice cream. The crosswalk is over there. The van is the black van just across the street over there. Please be very careful crossing Route 7. Thank you very much for coming. Please remember the purpose of this ceremony. Remember veterans. Remember friends that have fallen in combat. Thank you.
Sir, today, please post the colors. Morning, everybody. I'd like to thank you for coming to our today's ceremony and parade. We ended up with a perfect day today, I think. Yesterday was kind of nice. We did Lanesborough parade. Had a good turnout there and a good turnout here. I'll be your MC today. And at this time, I'd like to have the invocation by Rabbi Liz Hirsch.
Our God and God of our ancestors, we thank you for the numerous blessings you have bestowed upon our nation. Out of the many nations of the world, our country has been blessed with a singular opportunity to demonstrate how peoples of many faiths and heritages can live side by side and enrich one another's lives through friendship and the sharing of our unique traditions. We are united this day in a solemn act of gratitude to those who have served in our nation's defense, to those who have risked their personal safety to save the lives of others, and above all, to those who have died serving this country. Their sacrifices are forever remembered by us and by our children and for generations to come. We do not forget. Our hearts go out to those serving today in our armed forces and to their families. Those here among us today who are veterans of previous wars know best of all what they must be feeling, what their spouses and children are feeling, and what they pray for in all of our many faiths. We are united in this. Our prayers are with those who serve our country today. We ask God that they may return speedily and in good health and safety to their loved ones. And may God grant each of us the wisdom to uphold this nation's virtues, that it may continue to serve as a beacon of liberty and harmony between peoples for all of the world to see. Let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Now we'll have the national anthem by Anthony Pastari. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you very much. Here, you can have your mobile or truck here. We can always count on Tony to do a spectacular job. Thanks again, Tony. Now I'd like to introduce Mayor Linda Tyre. She's going to read reading of the Mayor Charles Whittlesey Proclamation. Mayor.
Good morning. What a glorious day for all of us to come together and remember and honor our veterans who we have lost. What I see here this morning fills my heart with pride. We have our oldest generation of veterans. We have Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. We have our musicians from our two high schools. We've all come together today to give thanks and to honor those that we have lost. Today I'm going to offer a proclamation for someone from our city who deserves special remembrance and special recognition. America has been blessed with an abundance of men and women who have proudly served their country through military service. On Memorial Day, we as a nation pay tribute to the men and women in the United States who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defending our country. And with roots connected to Pittsfield, Major Charles Whittlesey is remembered for his outstanding demonstration of leadership and courage during battle in Argonne, France. In October 1918, during World War I, Major Whittlesey held his position and fought off the enemy for 5 days. Having been cut off from the remainder of his supporting division and without necessary supplies. By maintaining his position, Major Whittlesey helped save 194 of his men. For this action, Major Whittlesey received the Medal of Honor and was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel. Today, we salute Major Whittlesey's bravery and dedication in the defense of our democracy and sovereignty and our freedom-loving nations around the world, recognizing that he is an extraordinary person who willingly stepped into harm's way to protect others. And we owe Major Whittlesey and the entire 1st Battalion, 308th Infantry Regiment, 77th Division, and all military personnel who sacrificed their lives a debt of gratitude which can never be fully repaid. Now, therefore, I, Linda M. Tyre, Mayor of the City of Pittsfield, on behalf of its citizens and elected officials, On this 27th day of May 2019, proudly honor and remember Major Charles Whittlesey for his dedicated military service and for the sacrifices he made to protect our freedoms and the liberties of the United States of America. Thank you, sir.
At this time now, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker. Mr. John Harding worked at GE Ordnance in 1962 before joining the United States Marine Corps in March of 1963 to August 1966. He was in G Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa, Philippines, Taiwan, Japan, and took part in the Gulf of Tonkin conflict, Vietnam, in 1964 and 1965. In 1965, he was redeployed to the mainland of Vietnam, where he served in C Company as a machine gunner in the 1st Marine Infantry Division. In 1966, he returned to GE. He became a part-time musician and later a full-time band leader in 1985. A disc jockey performing at weddings and many other special occasions, John always considered it an honor to play for benefits. He graduated from Berkshire Community College in 1973, North Adams State College, cum laude in 1975. John earned a Bachelor of Science degree and later received a degree in music. He was employed in the Pittsfield public school system until he retired in June of 2000. Mr. Harding was Sergeant at Arms of the Marine Corps League, Detachment 137, Pittsfield, Mass. A former Senior Vice Commander of the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 15 of the VFW, Pittsfield American Legion, Post 68, James E. Callahan Veterans of America, Post 65, and the Military Support Group for the American Red Cross of Pittsfield. He was a lifelong member of the Elks Lodge 272. He was the recipient of the Veteran of the Year Award on November 11, 2010. Let's introduce John Harding.
Thank you for that warm welcome. As you know, for the people who do not know me, I was sort of born with a microphone in my mouth. But just looking out there and seeing the people who support us is beyond something that we Vietnam vets would have loved to see. But and many Korean vets, but all war vets would be proud of this day. We have a beautiful day and a very, very honoring day. I definitely want to thank you for that. I would like to start with saying, this will be very brief, there's a book called Rumor of War, and in Matthew's, in the Gospel, it says, it's rumors of war, and it will be rumors of war. No matter how long we live and how long we live in peace, there will always be wars. And without the veterans, we will not be here. And these people, I want you to know that my topic today is what is the real difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. We understand that Memorial Day is for the fallen soldiers and Veterans Day is for all who have served in the armed forces of our country. But let us be reminded there are many factors to both. First and foremost is we should honor all veterans that were killed in action, KIAs. and the ones that came home with life-threatening wounds and passed on. POWs, ones that were in prison and still missing, and missing MIAs, missing in actions. They have to be in our hearts today. They will never, some have never been found, and we pray for them. And this is what Memorial Day is. And all the regular veterans, yes, they honor as much as they can because they did their part. The ones that have been in mental wards with traumatic brain injury, TBI, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and the very sad situation of suicide. These are the most profound parts of war and should be acknowledged on Memorial Day. On Veterans Day, November 11th, we honor all who have served our country honorably. Although on Memorial Day, we place flags for all veterans who signed their name and took the oath to protect our country. I was recently approached by a retired veteran, and he said to me, "I am not a veteran. I did not go into combat." My response was, being a soldier, combat or not, you have an obligation to protect our country. You are a veteran. And he said, "Thank you." And that goes out to all the living veterans today. But most of all, our day today is the ones who gave their life and the ones that came home that are still suffering from that. Next, I would like to give praise and respect to the families of the fallen veterans and give my sincere condolences for their loss. For the families and other loved ones who have endured the anxiety of waiting, I give a salute for you too, have and are fighting and have fought the battle. Please think about freedom. We have in America, the most countries, we have something in America that most countries don't have. No doubt we have severe problems to work out, but because of our veterans and those that support us, meaning you, we shall prevail. Without them, we would not exist. The one thing I truly feel is the love for my country, my family, my friends, my cohorts, and of course, my fellow veterans, who always show me respect and meaning of cohesion. Learning from the Vietnam War, I learned from an empirical point of view, the worst thing to lose in your life is your dignity. You people have helped in the restoration of that feeling. In closing, I would like to thank all the people that participated in the ceremony and all the staff of Pittsfield and St. Joe cemeteries for their cooperation during the places of the flags. And all the volunteers, especially dedicated volunteers that I had that worked so hard. Thank God I had a good crew. And they placed pretty close to 8,700 flags. All they asked for is to see, all their reward was, all they asked for is to see those flags fly in the wind on Memorial Day. And I would like to thank a person who's helped me work with these people, and that's Don Kasuba, who was in charge of putting these flags in for over 40 years. I would like to hear a nice round of applause. And the last thing I'd like to say, I'm proud to be a veteran. And I'm proud of you people. And I would like to say thank you and God bless the USA.
It's for you. This is for you.
At this time, we will read the short version of the General John A. Logan's Memorial Day Order by Craig Gaetani.
Good morning, veterans. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And good morning, boys and girls. Having served in Vietnam for 17 months, I'm humbled to be able to read a proclamation made by General John A. Logan at headquarters of the Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5, 1868. The 30th day of May 1868 is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will in their own way arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances permit. We are organized comrades. Our regulations tell us for the purpose, among other things, of preserving the strengthening of those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who, memory of our heroic dead, who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foe. Their soldier lives where the reveal of freedom to a race in chains, and their death a tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and found mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect nor ravage of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as people the cost of freedom and undivided republic. In other eyes grow dull, and other hands slack, and other hearts cold, in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well, as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds, above them with choicest of flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledge to the aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widows and orphans. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope it will keep us from year to year. While a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades, he earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing to the notice of the comrades in all parts of the country in time of simultaneous compliance therein. Therefore, department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. Signed, General John A. Logan, Headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5, 1868. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Now we'll have a medley of patriotic music by Pittsfield High School Band and Ashley Paradise. service, John Herrera, who will read the names of our departed veterans from 2018 to 2019. At this time, I would like to call up the Berkshire Veterans Coalition commanders or their representatives one at a time to the urn up in front of the podium. Starting with the American Legion Post 68, Commander Becky Tanner. Korean War veterans, Joe DiFilippo. DAV Chapter Commander Gordon Hamilton. Are there any Iraq or Afghanistan veterans here today that would like to place a poppy in the urn today for our deceased veterans? Come up to the podium, please. Morning. Veteran of Foreign Wars, Post 448, Commander Arnie Paris. Jewish War Veterans, Post 140, Commander Gary Turetsky. Italian War Veterans, Post 75, Commander Walter Lapierre. Marine Corps League, Detachment 137, Robert Garrity. Vietnam Veterans, James E. Callahan, Berkshire Chapter 65, George Moran.
Thank you, Fran. Before I call out the names, I'd like to recognize our honored guests, Senator Adam Hines, Representative Tricia Farley-Bouvier, Mayor Tyre, and all of our City Council members. Thank you very much for your attendance here this morning. And I'd also like to thank Sergeant Mark Poppy for stepping forward for the Afghan-Iraq veterans. I'll begin calling out the names in a military style. So what does that mean? That means last name first, first name last. Starting with Adelson, Gordon, J. Allen, Sheldon, P. Anderson, Roger, N. Ailing, James. Bayer, Seymour. Barnes, Raymond F. Bates, Robert P. Valora, Jr., Richard C. Benoit, Paul D. Benson, Richard J. Berkman, Eugene M. Pescalo III, Gregory G. Blasioli, Anthony J. Blau, Michael E. Boyington, William I. Blanc, Rene Lewis. Briggs, Lorenzo M. Brown, Franklin L. Brown, Robert K. Birch, Joshua W. Caldwell, Charles E. Carter, James A. Shalou, Thomas E. Shaznowski, Chester A. Semini, Mario B. Cook, David A. Crea, Anthony J. Cross, Mark H. DeRouche, Nassif J. Davis, Donald W. DeCandia, Arthur J. DeNicola, Alexander. Donovan, Harry A. DePietro, Anthony J. Doobie Sr., John E. Elam, Joe L. Elling, Raymond W. Elliott, Robert L. Evashowski, Michael S. Farrar, Ralph R. Franchebois, John R. Fresia, Richard C. Personetti, Charles R. Gaither, William B. Galucia, Warren H. Gardner Sr., William J. Germanowski, Edmund J. Germain, David G. Gibney, William A. Gimlowitz, Joseph J. Gintwain, Robert E. Goodell, Henry A. Gorski, Chester T. Grassley, Peter. Grandy, Thomas H. Greeley, Edwin. Grizzy, Clinton E. Rossetti, Dorothy D. Jalou, Anthony F. Haas, Ernest A. Hanson, the third, Fred T. Harrington, Irving R. Hart, Jr., John F. Heath, Jr., Kenneth R. Henderson, Donald. Hines, John E. Hughes, Robin L. Jerem, Michael S. Jennings, Jr., William B. Johnson, Bernard F. Jones, Aubrey M. Kastronakis, John G. Kastronakis, Paul J. Ketchum, Lee. Kibbe, Craig A. King, Thomas M. Kirchner, John M. Kushai, Francisco X. Lacroix Sr., Edward N. Ladley, Edward J. Laframboise, Dorothy M. Lagroteria, Francisco R. Lamoureux, Gary P. Lossier, Louis R. Licardi Sr., Anthony J. Lindaberry, Jerome T. Lovato, Bruno J. Lucky, Willie J. Lutz, Donald L. Lyon, Jean M. Lyon, Janine D. Machaffey, William K. Mackey, Ronald A. Mafuccio, Carmelo A. Magnone, Joseph J. Muskrowski, Edward S. Mantagari, Rudolph J. May, Jonathan E. McDermott, Douglas A. McFarland, Thomas E. McIntosh Jr., Neil H. Metivier, Francis L. Miller, Walter. Moore Jr., Carlton W. Moores, Donald A. Morin, Donald P. Mossman, Herbert H. Motter, Edward J. Mularski, Walter F. O'Donnell, John L. Orsi, John F. Ozals, Ivers. Paris, Anthony R. Parslow, Robert W. Peasley, Carl E. Peck, Bruce E. Peck, George A. Peterson, Jan K. Paris Sr., Ronald E. Phelps Jr., Harley P. Piacenti, Thomas J. Pill, Teresa G. Pivero, Anthony J. Plummer, Edmund J. Polidoro, Frank P. Potwin, Vernon R. Powers Jr., Richard J. Powers Sr., Joseph B. Powers, Robert F. Prue Jr., Philip E. Procopio, Frank J. Putnam, Tarrant H. Reynolds, Edward R. Richmond, Gerald W. Regal, Donald J. Rocca, William. Roccabruna, Albert G. Rogers, Thomas R. Roosevelt, Richard H. Rose, Stanley M. Rawson, Joseph P. Rowland, Barry L. Sacchetti, Robert J. Sadlowski, Lewis. Sala, Roger V. Salvatore, Dominic F. Scott, William H. Simo, Alfred V. Smacchetti, John A. Smith, Douglas N. Soldo, Edward N. Sandrini, John D. Spaniol Jr., Robert J. St. John, Joseph E. St. John, Michael. Stavosky, John F. Stavru, Peter T. Stern Jr., Robert J. Streeter, Edward B. Straffolino, Ralph E. Sumi, Anthony A. Supple, John B. Sopranowitz, Leon V. Taylor, Robert J. Taylor, Russell A. Tiffany, Brian D. Toro Jr., Charles. Toth, Robert J. Upright, Albert J. Van Bergen, Harold F. Vincent, James T. Wahlberger, Richard C. Weiss, Marvin L. White, Orville A. Wiley, Roy J. Williams, James. Williams, Averill M. Wilson, Robert A. Wren, George F. Zach, Daniel. And lastly, Zeba Jr., Henry J. To the men and women who have gone before us, rest in peace, we have the guard. Thank you.
I'd like to give a special thanks to the members of the Pittsfield City Council, Mayor Linda Tyre, the Berkshire Veterans Coalition, Pittsfield Police Department, Police Chief Michael Wynn, Berkshire Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Tom Bowler, Mr. Anthony Pastore, Ashley Paradise on the Pittsfield High School Band for his great job today, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America, and again, all the veterans that placed the flags on the graves at the Pittsfield Cemetery and St. Joseph Cemetery. Around close to 8,800 flags were placed. I would like to also thank all those that marched in today's parade and all that attended today's ceremony. If you have a flag today, please fly it at half-mast until noon. And now we'll have the volley by the veterans, James E. Callahan, Berkshire Chapter 65 Honor Guard. And Jody Fiplow will do the taps. Now we'll have the benediction by Reverend Christopher Federation from St. Mark's Church. Thank you.
And let us pray. Eternal God, Lord of all history, who called us to worship you in spirit and truth, you have lifted us up with your kindness. Therefore we come before you with all humility. We pray with spirit and courage because you have redeemed us. O God, lift the hearts of those for whom today is not just a diversion, but an important memory. And we remember with compassion those who have died serving their country. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Officer of the Day, Arnie Paris, please retire to colors.
Column right. Ho. Column right. Ho. Column guard. Ho. Right. Hey. Column guard, thank you for your service. Dismiss.
That ends our ceremony. I'd like to thank again everybody for coming today. How many veterans do we have out there? Let's have a, look at that, round of applause. Thank you, men and women.